Audience, thank you. Oh my God.
I hate you, Trevor. Okay. So I hate to be the one to say it, but it's time for a wake-up call, gentlemen. America is rapidly turning into the land of the incarcerated instead of the land of the free, as you would most likely think it is. Due to mandatory minimums and privatized prisons, we are starting to lock up our own people at a faster and faster rate as the years go on. If you look at the research, the Institute of Criminal Policy Research in America says that we lead the world in inmates. That's higher than China, Russia, all these people combined. Now, if we want to lead the next generation into a fair and more just society, we have to start making major reforms into the way we think about institutionalizing people and putting them into the prisons. If we look at all the harms that we have already been doing since the 70s, looking into the same Institute of Criminal Policy Research, we've only quadrupled the amount of people we've had in prisons, yet the crime rate has stayed the same. In the war on drugs has only taken 50% of people who we do incarcerate as nonviolent drug offenders, and we're treating them all the same as if they're all violent offenders. If you look at how much money we've been putting into it on economic level, we've already wasted $1 trillion in locking up these people for these low-level crime offenses. But we could be using that money for all other kind of things. On a social level, people still have a great disdain in their heart about how they look at their government, and they don't have trust in it. If you look at security, people have a false sense of security because they think that with all these prisoners locked up, that means there must be more safer streets out there, and we all know this is not the case. And health-wise, it doesn't really affect us in here, but it's very easy to overthink about the health that the criminals are actually feeling inside the prisons. Because in these privatized prisons, groups like Geo Group and Airmark take over some of the certain responsibilities that the state would have taken care of to save money. So that means with the population expanding at such a fast rate, there's more malnutrition, there's not always enough food, people are sick and they're not getting enough health care. And even in Texas, in 2014, 50 people died in the first 8 months of that year, as opposed to 37 people dying in the previous 2 years combined. So, what do we do about this? My plan is to get rid of mandatory minimums altogether. What mandatory minimums are is when you, or at least on paper, it makes it seem that you will do a certain offense and then you will get a set number of years for doing that offense. Now, that might seem more just, as some of the opposition might say, because everybody gets the same punishment, therefore there are no rooms for racial bias. But what it ends up really doing is switching over the prosecution and the judgment from the judge to the prosecution. We've all seen the Law and Order episodes where they're saying that you're going to get 15 years for this, or you're going to get so-and-so years for that, when it's not really their job. They're only supposed to send you to prison. It's the judge's job to judge how many you get, because they're supposed to look at the context of the situation, making it more fair. They went to school for this. But when you have mandatory minimums in place, it's only making it so that the prosecution gets to decide if you get a plea bargain or not. It's not really fair. It's just switching the power over to people who are not as equipped to make that judgment. If you look at the mandatory minimums when people say they're so fair, if you look at the research that the NAACP has put out, African Americans and Latinos are 6 times more likely to go to prison for the same offenses as their white counterparts. So even though they're saying that things are more fair, things are still on paper, more minorities are going to prison for the same drug offenses. And as far as people saying that mandatory minimums have a way of making a commonality in the diverse justice system that we do have, that is true, and that's fine. But you can't be so strict in these things to where the context is completely excluded, as in like self-defense or anything like that, because then all you do is get more and more people locked up behind bars. And if we think about all the opportunities that can come out of this, If we have more people in the workforce with less sentencing, that means there's going to be more people, men and women alike, who can go and put money into the economy, therefore boosting everyone's well-being. Socially, people will start feeling that they can trust their government more because they won't feel like when they do get arrested for whatever offense, they're not just being tried off the rap and just be sent to jail with no hearsay whether they can have a lawyer or not. Politically, if more politicians were on board with this program, they would be able to say that they have healed the relationship between the government and the people, and therefore have a stronger running, do whatever it is they're trying to do. And security, the country would still be intact because the only things that would change would be the laws would be more just. Therefore, people would know what they're in for when they are about to break the law. Disclaimer, I'm not saying people should break the law at all. And an interesting fact, when I did talk to certain students about this, some of them were very cold and strict when they said, don't break the law, and there's nothing wrong going to happen. That's all well and good, and we all know not to break the law, but when we do look at these laws and see how racially biased they really are, and how doing a certain thing for a certain group of people will get you more time as opposed to another group of people, it's just not fair. It just turns into a new type of slavery, if you will, for a certain demographic in America. So what I'm proposing is we do away with privatized prisons, get them out of the picture so the state is taking care of the people that they're incarcerated, and get rid of mandatory minimums altogether so we can look at each instance in context and get a just amount of sentencing for that said offense. Therefore, everything is more fair, everything's more just, everybody's more happy.